the end of every unit, your teacher has a chance to teach a lesson about other lessons or context to enhance. But what do you suppose our teacher has us do? He skipped the lesson, makes us present a digital LEQ. Elocution needs historical evidence, reason that can carve and advance complex thesis that Dr. John P. Irish would admire. Then we drop this screencast like a single that is fire. Students create a screencast for you to like, subscribe, and share. We know you've had all the John Green and Heimler you can bear, but if we have the most views by 10 p.m. Eastern on the 5th day, we earn 500 bonus points with virtually guarantees an A. Without much more fanfare audio, we present our digital LEQ.
All right, welcome boys and girls to another episode of Elocution, and today we are going to be talking about the American and French Revolutions. Let's get to it. All right, so here's our big question for today. What were the similarities between the causes of the American and French Revolutions? Think about that. All right, let's go. They were filled with protest, decorations, Enlightenment ideas, and the hostility against loyalists, or basically people that sided with the oppressive side. All right, what were some differences? Some of the differences between the causes of American and French revolutions were that while the American Revolution used boycotts and seek to overthrow the imperial monarchy, it was kick-started by revolutionaries. The French Revolution used riots, and they seeked to create a constitutional monarchy and was kick-started by a national assembly. Here's our prompt. All right, here's our thesis. So, some may say that the American and French revolutions are very different since one was considered heroic and the other violent. However, both revolutions started in order to overthrow rulers and gain a constitution that would benefit the people, since the system before the revolutions only benefited those in power. Crazy, right? Therefore, the American and French revolutions are more similar than you may think. All right, here's some of our historical context. All right, so in both of these crazy revolutions, all right, they had ideas of liberty, equality, and unlimited monarchy, basically saying the monarchy can't just say, screw y'all, I'm going to do what I want. All right, so in America, they felt a separation from the monarchy because they already had their own government. And on top of that, Britain was all the way across the country. Like, why are you trying to manage me, basically? In France, there was a lot of tension because France owed debt because they funded the American Revolution. Therefore, it caused a rise in food prices. Therefore, a lot of poverty. No one likes being hungry. There was also open criticism of the Catholic Church. They condemned the wealth and power that the Catholic Church held at the expense of the people. Some of the similarities. All right, so protest. Both revolutions had protests. They were against the king in power. They both made declarations that emboldened the protesters and had Enlightenment ideas of freedom and liberty. Also, again, there was hostility against the loyalists. Some differences. In the American Revolution, it was considered heroic because there was a lack of representation in the parliament as taxes were passed. All right, boycotts. They started out with boycotts and protests and gradually progressed. The goal was to overthrow an imperial monarchy, and it was kickstarted by revolutionaries that led protests. And they had self-governing colonies already, so they felt a separation from Britain. And in the French Revolution, historians considered it more violent. People did not like the system because there was widespread hunger, and there was a political system that put economic burdens on the poor. It started out as riots and rebellions, and it just gradually increased. They seeked to create a constitutional monarchy. and it was kickstarted by a National Assembly that banned the Haitian regime. And Enlightenment thinkers questioned monarchies, calling it godly. Not a good look. All right, let's get to our first topic, the American Revolution. Here's our first quote. They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary, but when shall we be stronger? Will it be when we are totally disarmed, and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Patrick Henry, an American orator. All right, here's the reasoning for this. This shows the people's dissatisfaction with the British rule. They saw it as oppressive and they wanted freedom from it. The point of view was this man was a revolutionist, so it showed his perspective of how the revolutionists thought and what they were fighting for. Next quote. Our cruel and unrelenting enemy leaves us no choice but a brave resistance or the most abject submission. Our own country's honor all call upon us for a vigorous and manly exertion. The eyes of all our countrymen are now upon us. Happily, we are the instruments of saving them from the tyranny meditated against them. George Washington, American political leader and military general. This quote shows the ideas behind the revolutions. They wanted to resist ultimate submission to a higher power. It also showed that the revolutionists saw a way to free their fellow Americans through this revolution. They saw the king's rule as tyranny, and the point of view, George Washington, everyone knows him. He was a military leader, so he saw the major fighting and how it built up. Third quote, we find in the Declaration of Independence a list or catalog of acts attributed to the King of Great Britain and alleged to have been done by him with the deliberate purpose of establishing over the colonies an absolute tyranny. Carl Becker, historian. This shows his feelings about a tyrant. It shows him as oppressive and that it was unneeded and that further actions were needed to take towards making a revolution. And this was the Declaration of Independence. Point of view, this man was a historian. He studied the colonists from the outside. So when you study people, you become an expert on the subject. French Revolution. Let's get it. Quote, unless you do everything for your liberty, you have done nothing. There are no two ways of being free. One must be entirely free or become a slave once more. Maximilien Robespierre, French revolutionist politician. The reasoning, this reveals the feelings of the state of the government. They had a need to be free and a need to gain liberty. This was a French revolutionist. He knew the feelings and the buildup that led to the revolution. Second quote, poverty was France's most visible social problem. The poor numbered at the best of times almost a third of the population, 8 million people. Bad times, 2 or 3 million might join them as crops failed and jobs disappeared. William Doyle, historian. This one shows one of the massive problems plaguing France, poverty. No one likes to be poor. Also showed a need to be treated better because the king's actions to improve this was horrible, just horrible. He was a historian. He studied the revolution with an outside perspective, and therefore he was an expert on the project. All right, here is our AP Modern World History themes. First, cultural developments and interactions. It shows a change in how these two societies viewed themselves and how they were treated. And also governance shows how there was a loss of power through revolutions. All right, conclusion. Let's get it. Both the American and the French Revolution started in order to overthrow their rulers and in response to worsening conditions. People in both revolutions were led by the Enlightenment ideas and hope for a better future. Well, guys, I'm done. Hope you had a good time. I'll catch you on the flip side.